Hey, hello everyone. My name is Nick, the DM of our Shattered Kingdoms campaigns that we're posting here on YouTube. Today I am joined by Josh, who is here to talk about their character, Zylon. Is there any
Yes.
quick words you want to say, Josh? Introduce
Uh, Z
yourself or anything like that?
uh, Nothing much that hasn't already been introduced. I'm Josh. I'm the player in his campaign. I'm also a new DM as well.
Yep.
So, and I run a campaign that's not recorded for these guys, but
Mhm.
and yeah,
Yep, you were on one of the other campaigns that we play in that isn't recorded. I do believe most of the people in our group are either currently a DM or planning on becoming a DM at
yeah,
some point.
it's a very hard thing to do. DMing is I wouldn't say hard. It's a different character. It's a different
A different
thing
beast
that
than
it's
being
different
a
than being a
player.
player. It's more about planning than it is about it's more planning ahead and
Yep.
hoping that uh possibly really realistically I probably should have gotten a little bit more player experience before
Mhm.
I started DMing, but I
I
think I'm
mean,
doing a decent job.
you probably had more character experience than I did when I started DMing, because I think we both only had like one campaign that we'd played before
Your
you went
camp
in as a DM.
your campaign that I played before was the first actual like campaign that I had ever played in for
Mhm.
D&D. Speak
Yeah, I only had one campaign before that before I DM'd. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, no problem. What I meant to say is, speaking of that first campaign, the character that I chose and was Zylon.
Yep, you were Zylon, who was a bard, and
Zylon, just Zylon.
yep, I remember that joke. The Zylon, just Zylon. But
Zylon is a bardificer. He's 12 levels of bard, 8 levels of artificer.
okay, it's good. And do you mind explaining Zylon's backstory a little bit as we kind of dive into these questions here?
Certainly. Uh, Zylon essentially is a bard. He grew up originally in multiple places, eventually coming down to Waterdeep at some point in his life. He didn't really know his family that well and basically grew up by himself for a while and decided to make a lot of his money and such via the
Mm-hmm.
use of playing music and singing. Uh, some He heard rumors a long time ago that the old empire, which has long since fallen and is basically in a state of disrepair,
Mm-hmm.
his father or one of his great ancestors used to be a performer in the court of the emperor, according to a rumor,
Mm-hmm.
which he loves to use that as a party story, but it's never really affected his life. It's never really put gold in his pocket or anything.
Yep.
Uh, Zylon had no way of knowing this, but the rumor was incorrect, but not in the way that he would expect.
Mm-hmm.
As it is later revealed that the connection to the throne is a lot more strong than it was simply with a rumor. I completely butchered that statement. It
Yeah.
turns out his connection to the throne is more
It's
strong
stronger. Yeah.
than being a bard, as apparently one of his great grandfathers has a connection directly to the throne, as in was one of the emperors before the fall of the empire.
Yep. Xylon's like great grandfather or something like that was one of the last few. quote unquote good emperors before the empire kind of went to shit and began its slow decline. Is
Yes.
there anything else you want to say about Zylon's backstory there?
Uh, that basically covers everything pre-campaign. Uh, if you want, I can probably go into a bit of what happened during the campaign, but
Yeah, you could probably go in a little detail about what happened during the campaign too, just to give all the viewers a little bit of information on that.
well, he in Waterdeep heard about the Great Waterdeep Height, the Great Waterdeep Vaults, and
Mm-hmm.
heard of a group of adventurers that were thinking about finding it, and was interested in that, so he decided to join them at the tavern on that one fateful day. And the rest is history.
Yep, the rest is history. They went on their quest to find the vault, ended up being involved in a quest to save their homeland, basically, in the Shattered Kingdoms, as they.
From as Tyrion, the last emperor, turned out to still be alive and was using ancient artifacts to not only prolong his life but to potentially rule and or destroy the world.
Yep. I mean, he was focused on trying to rule the world more so than destroy the world, but he might have ended up destroying it regardless.
Mm,
He did have a lot of ancient imperial technology, as well as like fragments of the god Lolth that have been trapped in certain artifacts that he was trying to find before the party did, so he could try and get all those and use the power of a god to rule the world, basically.
mm.
And anything else?
Basically, well, going into the campaign, Zylon, I wouldn't exactly say he's a pacifist, but he generally preferred to use his words before he had to make any physical actions against a person.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to resolve things first through talk, last through violence.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried to be quick with a joke, but often kind of faltered in the face of things.
Yep.
Not the world's greatest bard in the world, but he certainly managed, and it's
Yeah.
turned out rather great for him eventually.
I mean, he ended up being the emperor of a reformed empire, so I think
Yes.
that turned out pretty well for him.
Uh, yes. Uh, Zylon is kind of an interesting character in that he, of course, became emperor, and he's at the end of the campaign. Essentially, everyone got the opportunity to basically become immortal in a sense.
Yes, and
There
then
was there was
Zylon was the only one who didn't
yes,
have that.
Zylon turned down his immortality because he didn't want to outlive the people he loved.
Mm-hmm. I mean, most of the if the party itself is most of the people that he loved, then he'd still have quite a few people who would still be alive with him
Yes,
in
but
some capacity.
there's
Yeah.
other people, specifically Gwendolyn and the children.
Yep, Gwendolyn and his children.
Speaking
Eh,
of Gwendolyn, we were in I forget exactly what city, but during the time we met a princess by the name of Gwendolyn,
mm-hmm.
and
It was the capital
with
city of Tamir is all I remember because that was one of the sessions that I
cap-
missed.
capital city of Tamir. Uh, to cut a long story short, they ended up getting married.
Yep, that is definitely the short version of that story. Um, any other last comments about what happened in the campaign?
Uh, he's gone through a lot of stuff. He kind of took an interest in artificery partway through the campaign and decided
Mm-hmm.
to start tinkering around with that sort of stuff. It ended up getting him a dog, a Iron Defender by the name of Azul, by name of Blue. My
Blue.
mistake.
Oh yeah.
Blue is Blue is an interesting creation because essentially,
Mm-hmm.
what sometimes Zylon likes to run his mouth before without fully thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point, he pissed off another character by the name of Azul.
Yep.
You probably already talked to Azul,
Yep. I have
and
done Azul's character video already, and I
and
can't remember if that came up or not, but I know what situation you're talking about. So I
basically
remember
they
that.
finished an argument. He basically meant to talk him down, and at the end of and after he said, "All right, I'll stop doing that," he said under his breath, "All right, good boy,"
Yeah, I
which
remember
set
that.
which set which set Azul off against him, saying, "I am not a dog," and basically threatened to kill me and or maim me in very gruesome ways that only Azul can fathom.
Yep, I remember that because that was like towards the beginning of the campaign, and uh, Azul played that very well. So I thought like he was like that Jonathan was genuinely pissed about that, and that uh the campaign might fall apart. But
Oh no, I think it's just a
that's the
character moment.
yeah, it was just a character moment. But at the time, I'm like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, because I'm like,
Anyway,
because I was still getting used to like how well everyone was at role playing their characters. Sorry, go ahead.
following the following that incident, of course, Zylon started getting interested in artificery and built a robot dog. He had to think of a name, and he tried to think of a name for what he wanted to call the dog, and eventually settled on the name Blue.
Blue.
For those of you who are not super, for those of you who might not be as who might not know Spanish, Azul is Spanish for blue.
Yeah. So basically, he went with a roundabout way of naming the dog after Azul.
Yes, kind of
To that
in reference
mistake, yeah.
to that incident. And Azul eventually learned the background of this, and I don't think he ever did anything about it. But it
No, I
certainly
don't
was an
think
interesting
so.
moment.
Yeah, he not beyond anything that he was already doing, which was like terrorizing you and trying to teach you how to survive by
Yeah,
terrorizing you.
yes, he had a very interesting way of trying to protect me, and the way he protects me is by putting me in harm's way.
Yep.
Uh, he also got a bird. I forget what I called the bird. It was Tweedledee, I believe.
Yeah, it was Tweedledee.
And it was a robot bird that we rescued from a workshop of some sort. And I think that's how I got interested in artificery, trying to maintain this bird.
Yes, I think it was like Nim in the that workshop threw the bird at you and it like hit you in the face or something. And you
And
got
I
interested in
decided,
it
and out of
because of that.
spite, I would build it.
Yep. And then
Uh,
I think the party ended up like somewhat adopting Nim from what I remember. The
and
oh sorry, go ahead.
other than that, nothing major happened to him for a while, up until he lost his arm.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot he lost his arm.
Yeah, there was a incident. I forget exactly what happened precisely. This is a great interview. I don't remember exactly what happened, but he basically lost his arm during a ambush, which he replaced with an arcane propulsion arm.
Ah. Oh, so was that like when he got abducted by Imperials?
This is
When
later. This is later, like mid
ah,
campaign.
okay, so it's after you're in the Shattered Kingdom, so it didn't happen like when Tyrion was abducted you and tried to
It wasn't
recruit
while
you.
we, it wasn't while we were still in Waterdeep. It was after this.
Ah, all right. Well, then I don't know how Zylon ended up losing his arm.
He was ambushed. He got cut off.
Ah,
I think he was more almost a. He wasn't the target. He was. What basically happened was he was a bystander almost to this attack, who really roughed up Nikas, I believe, was with us at the time.
oh God, was it Kaz? Was it Kaz that like did some sort of attack and that caused Zylon to lose his arm?
It's possible.
Because I do remember that there was like I think Kaz beat the shit
I
out
know
of Nikus.
Nikas and I
Um,
went off somewhere to do something, at
yeah,
which point my arm was separated from the rest of my body, and Nikas found himself quite beat up.
yes, I think that was Kaz that um cut off Cylon's arm then.
Hmm,
Because I think he did that. He beat up Nikus and he murdered a bunch of priests. Because I think that happened when you were in the Dwarf Kingdom.
that sounds about right.
Yeah. All right. Any last questions? Or sorry, any last comments before I move on to the next question here?
Uh, if I think of something, I'll let it be known.
Okay. So then, Josh, why did you choose this character? Why did you choose Zylon as your character for this first campaign that we didn't record?
Well, it was the very first character that I had ever played, like in D&D period, and I wanted to play something that was interesting and not super complex. So of course I chose a spellcaster and an artificer. Uh, I chose this. I think I chose a bard because recently I'd finished playing this one game called Wandersong,
yeah.
and which basically has a follows the story of a bard who solves a lot of his problems through song. That's a very, very oversimplification of this game, but I love that game.
Yeah.
And decided to make a bard roughly based on the ideas of that character.
Yeah. That makes sense. And then, was there any reason why you had your character end up being the descendant of long dead emperor?
It was, I think, when we were first originating the idea of getting the group together, I think
Yeah.
I randomly made a comment about that could be an interesting plot point, and we just ran
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, I do think yeah, it might have been something that we did in that kind of brainstorming session because we did kind of like brainstorm a lot after I'd volunteered DM, and we kind of helped create the world together and get everyone's backstories and characters kind of sorted out, and that like
Yeah, it
session zero kind of thing.
was. I don't think it was even session 0. I think it was like session
Yeah,
-1
one,
almost.
yeah, yeah, because I think we had like a separate session that ended up being session zero, didn't we?
E- I
Well,
think
actually,
so. We had
maybe because the thing we had a session where we made sure everyone's characters were set up, and then
yeah, that was
we got through the fight with the troll in Waterdeep, and that
yes.
was it. And that was like a 5 hour, like a 5 hour thing.
Yeah, and it was. I think we did session 0 and session 1 basically on the same day, but session -1, which is basically having a group exist at all, was
Yep. Was
back then.
yeah, back then when I first volunteered and everyone was still looking for a group.
Hmm.
All right. So now we've got that answered there. What would you say is one defining trait about Xylon?
His positivity, I guess.
I
He likes
guess.
he tries to stay positive or at least objective in the face of different circumstances. He doesn't go into the whole, oh, everything's terrible. I'm not going to be able to progress further than this because I've met a slight inconvenience. He likes to try
Yeah.
to figure out what the situation is and figure out where you can go from there.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Zylon was always positive, from what I remember. So I guess, yeah,
Yes.
that is a
There's
unique thing
some
about him. Sorry, go ahead.
potentially some minor moments of weakness that he had, but generally he tried to be the rock that the rest of the party can lean on, in a way,
Yeah.
in terms of like mentally. I mean,
Yep. I think the few times he did crack were some of the more extreme situations.
yes.
Alright, and let me pull up the question list again here. Move on to the next question here. Which NPC would you say Zylon likes the least?
I wouldn't do a specific NPC. I don't think. I think in general it would be NPCs that want to be hostile to the group and cannot be reasoned with.
So, like, Dongle, basically.
So, sort of, yeah.
Because that's so far basically been like everyone's answer to that question was Dongle.
Hmm.
Was which character do you like the least? Everyone so far has more or less said Dongle for that.
I
So
mean, Dongle, I guess, would be one, but just generally, Zylon does not like to make enemies or keep track of enemies, so
it's just
he it's just more of
people
a
who can't
general.
be reasoned with and are hostile towards the party.
Yes,
Okay. And I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to this, but what NPC is Xylon the most fond of?
I would say likely his wife and his children. He has his wife Gwendolyn, but he also has two children. Tara, who is the older daughter, and Harold, who is the younger son.
Yep. His two kids, no more than that.
Yes, just two kids.
And okay, so he's fond of his family. Let's see here. What would you say the most important thing Xylon has done so far is?
Save the world.
Save the world? Okay. I mean, that's kind of an obvious answer there. Uh,
I think more specifically following the defeat of Tyrion,
mm-hmm.
he kind of got the empire restarted and back on track in kind of a peaceful direction.
Yeah,
Not
kind of
really
a
so not really so like war focused and everything, but more focused on stability and
stability and peace, yeah.
stability and peace. Not saying that they're pushovers or they've completely removed their armies, but the armies are more of a defensive measure or in order to ensure that peace comes about,
Yeah,
less due to wanting to conquer the world or anything.
yep. Which is good. I mean, you did a good. Xylon did a good job of that. I mean, someone had to take control of the empire, and there was a lot of Imperials that had come over, so they might have tried to conquer some more stuff without Tyrion if Xylon didn't take charge. So you're
Yeah, and
definitely good there.
he did have a rightful claim to the throne, and therefore I think even the Imperials had to
Had to
give
acknowledge, yeah.
authority to Zylon.
Yep. Let's see here. Alright, and if your character had to fight any of your other characters and or other player characters from the party, which one would it be and why? So who would Xylon fight of the all the different player characters if he had to pick one?
Sorry, my internet cut out there for one moment. What? Could you repeat the question?
Yep. If Zylon had to fight one of the characters in the party, which one would it be and why?
I think eventually Zylon will say some sort of stupid comment that will eventually make him and Azul come to blows.
Ah. So you're saying it would be Azul?
Likely,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, I can see that happening. That's the most likely character that Zylon would end up fighting. Um, so what was Zylon's motivation to join the party?
I guess kind of like wanting to do something different. Also
Okay.
money, but he wanted to do something
Awesome.
different.
Yeah, just getting out there and doing something different, basically.
Mm.
Okay. And is there anything you would have liked Xylon to have done before we ended the last campaign?
As I said earlier, Zylon was the first character I'd ever created for a D&D campaign, and there's
Mm-hmm.
so much stuff that I've learned from playing as Zylon that I and just playing D&D since that if I could go back, there's some stuff I would do. I'd probably adjust the way he acted a bit, probably optimize his sheet a bit.
Yeah.
But in terms of like character actions, I'd say he pretty much got everything he wanted
Mm-hmm.
accomplished.
Okay. I mean, optimizing your character sheet probably wouldn't have made too much of a difference. I think the
Probably
only real threat that was ever in the campaign was Kaz. In that fight that happened a few sessions before the end. So it's the only time where I almost TPK'd everyone.
it was a great fight. You keep talking about how you almost TPK'd everyone, but that was a great fight. That was one of the most fun and memorable fights of the campaign.
Yeah, it was just difficulty needed to be toned down just a bit. Uh,
What I meant by optimize, I think, is just write stuff down more
ah,
clearly.
yeah.
As a lot of my being my first sheet, the way I wrote it up
Mhm.
was terrible, and basically was is barely understandable gibberish.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. I just thought like you were gonna like change things around to make Xylon better. But let's move on to the next question here. If Xylon could kill one NPC without consequence, who would it be and why?
I don't think Zylon would really kill anyone. Zylon is
Yeah, I don't
very.
really think so either, but is there anyone that comes to mind? Or would he just throw this opportunity away and not kill anyone?
I think without consequence is a hard thing to do because there's always consequences to someone's death, even if they're not
Yeah.
faced directly by Zylon himself for committing
Mm-hmm.
the act. The repercussions of the death will have ripples.
Yep. I mean, is the question is more of like no consequence for you is kind of how it's meant to be interpreted. Like obviously there would still be consequences, yeah.
Uh,
So I take it Xylon wouldn't kill anyone then.
Probably, yeah. I mean, if I thought about it, I could probably come up with a better answer, but he probably would not kill anyone. Like I
Okay.
said, he prefers to use diplomacy rather than violence.
Okay. And if Xylon was told there was 1 month until the world ended, how would he react?
Well, most likely with panic. Wanted Zylon is well. One part of me says that Zylon would probably panic at this realization before trying to figure out ways to potentially stop it.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of me says he's dead. It doesn't. He's too dead to care at the moment.
He's dead. Oh, okay, yeah, because he is dead. It
Yes.
took me a second to get that. But yeah. But if he were alive and he was told that.
He would try to figure out any sort of way in order to either stop the end of the world or at least try to save as many people from the end of the
Yeah.
world disaster as he could.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like something Zylon would do. And if Zylon could go anywhere in the world of Shattered Kingdoms for vacation, where would it be and why?
I think he likes to kind of like travel out. He might head back to Waterdeep, I think, because that's where he
Mm-hmm.
grew up.
Okay.
That's not really in the Shattered Kingdoms per se, but
Yeah,
it's where
I'll allow it since that's where we started our campaign, just because
where
we had
everything
that
started.
module. Yeah.
It's it's where our house is that we never really did much with.
Yeah,
And
that's unfortunate. It's just because we had to move things to the actual world. There wasn't really too much of an opportunity to go back there and do too much with it. I guess
mhm,
maybe if I could redo it, maybe there'd be a way so you could like travel to and from, and use it as kind of a base of operations. But
yeah,
live and you learn. Because then I could have just had you to go back there, and then those could have the shops around there could have been your just go-to shops. And I wouldn't have to plan for any new shops or anything like that. But
possibly. I think another thing that why he would probably go there is because he wouldn't be recognized as being the emperor. He could just be a regular person again.
yeah, yeah, I
More,
imagine people in Waterdeep probably don't care too much about Shattered Kingdom politics.
yeah.
'Cause it's probably like seen as a backwater compared to the stuff around Waterdeep.
Hmm.
Alright, so you'd go to Waterdeep for vacation. Um, if Zylon could have one question answered truthfully by the all powerful creator of the universe, what would it be?
Huh. Probably something along the lines of, is there something that I can do to ensure peace in our time?
Hmm, that is a tall order. Um, I guess really the only thing that you can do is try and rule fairly and take whatever actions you can to try and promote peace
That's
and
all you
try to
really can.
yeah,
That's all you really can do. But I guess
and
if
like
you have to
teach
ask any
your
question, that would be
children
it.
how
I
to
mean,
rule could be part of that too.
he would either ask that, or he'd probably either do something serious like that, or he would probably squander it as a joke. Say something along the lines of, "Does this corset make my butt look big?" or something.
Yes, that is
Like
the official answer to that question. Yes.
I am the creator of the world. I know all. I shall grant you one question. Yeah, so does this jacket make my butt stand out?
Yes, yes, it does. That is your one question. Could you imagine how pissed people would be if they found out that Zylon squandered an opportunity like that with a
Yes, which
question
is
like that? Which is why you would have done that other question, how to ensure peace in our time.
mm, yes.
Ah. Alright, and I guess this is also kind of a situation of Zylon's dead, so he probably doesn't have too much of an opinion on this. But
Yeah, I mean, I see one of the questions on the list is what is something your character would like to do before they die? Well, about that.
yeah, he's already dead. That's more. That question is more for the new characters, which is why I have in parentheses new by
Mhm.
that. But the next question I was going to ask is also kind of something like, yeah, he's dead, so he probably doesn't have too much of a opinion on this. But if Xylem were alive right now and knew about the situation going on in Barul, what would his thoughts be on that matter?
He'd
With
probably he probably would respond similarly to the way that Terra did, in a
mm-hmm,
way that, of course, Terra is the current ruler of the Empire. She's the
Empire, mm-hmm,
Empress. She's the current Empress because Zylon is again too
dead.
dead to rule.
Yep.
Uh, so he would probably do something very similar. Terra kind of takes after Zylon in a lot of ways. I think Terra's a little bit more strong-headed and more willing to resort to violence than he is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think his actions would probably be very similar. They do. She does have a diplomatic streak in her.
Yeah, she does. I mean, she's definitely more headstrong than Xylon is, but I mean, she is I think she's probably had more like a military training background kind of thing than Xylon would have had as a bard.
Yes, she's actually like trained in the art of swordplay and that sort of stuff.
Yep.
She knows what she's doing. She knows which end of the sword goes into the enemy and which end you hold.
Yep. And uh, well, we're on the last question already here, but what is Xylon's greatest fear?
I would say it is the fear of letting everyone down,
Okay.
of doing, or alternatively, doing something that makes the world a worse place than how it was to begin with.
Hmm. I don't think
And
he's really done anything like that he really could have helped. I mean, you could
also
argue
horse,
that
also horses.
also horses. That is interesting. Why horses?
They're fucking terrifying. I don't know what it is about horses, but they are just big, and he would is big and like not very predictable. He's never been good at riding horses, and they always kind of buck him off, it seems. Or he's been
Yeah.
kicked once by a horse. Uh,
Mhm.
it's basically dislodged his robo arm from him,
Uh,
and ever since then he's been very skeptical around Esquians.
uh, that's not the answer I was expecting, but it was interesting to know that he is afraid of horses.
Was,
Uh,
at least.
yeah, was. I was gonna say it's too bad I learned that after he died, so I can't really use that information.
Uh, but essentially, yeah, he's more afraid of letting people down or doing
Uh,
something bad to make the world a worse place.
yeah, I think the only thing that you could argue that he's really done to make the world a worse place is dying, just because that means his kids or Tara is gonna rule, and she's not as experienced as he is. Because it's
He's
really the only thing I can think of that he's done to make the world worse.
well,
Maybe a few
you
other
can't
things, but that's
you
probably the
can't
main.
really you can't really control your
Yeah,
mortality.
I was gonna
I
say
mean,
it's not
I mean
really.
Xylon could in theory, but
Yeah, if he
uh,
chose to, he could have.
yeah, I know. Uh, yeah, but Terra. she has been trained in diplomacy and such, and I think she will make a good empress
Yeah.
in Zylon's place.
Assuming she doesn't die.
She'll be fine. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, she does like to do things on her own, and she does kind of. This is kind of turning less about Zylon, more about Terra. Terra kind of gets
Mhm.
frustrated at some of the. She's headstrong. She kind of has the thought process of why get if you want something done right, do it yourself.
Mhm.
So recently, she's starting to see some of the ways in which the Empire is either weak or, at worst, incompetent in some
Mhm.
places,
Mhm.
which is frustrating her. So I think she's less willing to rely on other people because of that.
Mhm.
Her headstrong, but I think she'll make a. I think she'll be decent. If not,
Yeah.
Harold takes more after his father,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I think
but
Terra's had some pretty bad luck with incompetent Imperials.
you can say that a lot.
Yep. But, is there anything else you want to say about Zylon?
Uh, I don't know. I would say probably not.
Mhm.
Just that he's. Would I play a character like him again? Maybe his character traits, but I'd never do a Bartificer again.
Yeah. And, why is that?
Just a very weird class to play. I played it because it sounded interesting and it became very complicated quickly. Too complicated for
Yeah,
a
new
new
player.
character.
Yep. That
But
makes sense.
I think in the end he was a good character though.
Yeah, he was a good character. I think all of the characters in the first campaign were good. I mean, we didn't have anyone like die off to get a new character or anything like that. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean
all I.
he may not have been the best character that I've played
Mhm.
since, but he is my character.
Yeah, and what's the best character you've played since?
Uh Still remains to be seen. Uh
Yeah.
Gaia is interesting for reasons that are too complicated to say.
Yeah.
I think just because again, Gaia is almost the opposite of Zylon in a lot of ways. They're similar in terms of like trying to resolve some problems, but she's
Mhm.
Gaia is quick with a sword.
Yes, she is definitely quick with her sword. And one of our last sessions, I was afraid she was going to like take out her sword to deal with those guards in the Confederacy that were preventing you from getting on the ship,
She
which
would have just
would have caused problems.
she likely would have threatened to arrest them, not much more.
Yeah, I don't know if does she really have the authority to do that though.
Uh I'd probably not, but she would probably be
She's
like,
probably yeah,
"Do
she's
you know?"
intimidating enough
She'd
to
probably be
pull it
like,
off.
Do you know who I am? I am literally an admiral. Get the fuck out my way."
Yeah, I think really the only way you could intimidate them more is if you told them you were with the organization. So,
Which I'm not, and I'm not a and Gaia's not a liar. She's many things. She's not a liar.
yeah.
Other than that, in a campaign that you were not involved in, I played a Kenku by the name of Echo. He was
Mhm.
fun.
Yeah, I think you've said a little bit about Echo in some of
Yeah,
our chats.
Echo's fun.
Yeah, he sounds
Was
like he'd
fun.
be fun.
That campaign actually just ended as well. That was
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, if that's all you have to say about Zylon, that's all I have for the questions here. So if you don't have any last minute comments here, I'm gonna stop the recording here.
nothing I can really think of, but yeah, I think it was a pretty good interview. I think it's probably one of the shortest ones we've done.
Yes, it's at about 45 minutes, so this is going to be the shortest one here. And I'm going to stop the recording